The story begins with two girls, an elf and a dwarf, asking the protagonist's reason to buy them. And without saying anything, only the reason passed through his head. For him, obviously tired of being called a virgin, he decided to solve the problem once and for all. But as he can't say that to them, he quickly invents that the reason is to free the world from hunger. And going back in time, to better understand all this, when he found the god responsible for his reincarnation, the same possessed the beauty superior to that of a human. So he quickly realizes that he died in some way, and is in the classic part of the reincarnation mangas. He couldn't wait to gain his stolen powers and do this and that with the beautiful girls. After 30 years of a lonely life on Earth, he was ready to say goodbye to his old self. When the goddess greets him, calling him an idiot, unpopular and unable to sustain adequate conversation with women. "Oh, Mr. Virgin." He even wanted to answer these offenses, but he couldn't. Thanks to his slender-tongued little sister, he had already gotten used to it, and in comparison to his sister, she took it lightly. So he ignores and just asks who she is. The beautiful woman then presents herself as a goddess, and to confirm his doubts, he asks if she was really dead, and she says yes. Because a high school student fell from the building right on top of him, which caused his death. He then begins to remember that this happened when he was coming back from work, but the depraved goddess interrupts his thoughts and asks if he took advantage of her delicacy and softness in the process. While on the outside he says nothing, on the inside he does not deny the fact that he does have the desire to be sat on the back, but that he didn't even have time to feel it at that time. More worried about the girl, he asks if she was okay in the end, and the goddess says that he doesn't need to worry, because she was saved thanks to him. He now feels even more relieved, because at least his death was not in vain, and for him to have saved a life, the goddess promises him a reward for his good deed, and will give him a special opportunity for his next life. While on the outside he seemed surprised and confused, on the inside he was already waiting for this. The goddess then continues and says that he will be reincarnated in a world of fantasy, magic and swords, but that he will possess the body of a person, which confuses him. She then pulls a slide, and in it she shows who he will possess, a boy named Alan, young and with a beautiful face. Realizing all these strong points, he feels that with that body he will certainly not have a hard time with women, and the goddess, as she reads her thoughts, comments precisely on this, provoking him, and not enduring his provocations anymore, so she thinks that if she wants to play with him, she should do it with other parts of her too. The goddess, obviously, is reading her thoughts, and soon gets irritated with her boldness, but changing the subject, he asks if this possession will unite his personality with that of Alan, and the two will share the same body, and the goddess says no, that Alan's personality will cease to exist, that as he is a novice adventurer raised in an orphanage, he will even lose his life in a dungeon soon, so when his soul leaves, he will take control of the body, which begins to make him hesitant. And then he realizes that if Alan dies in a dungeon, then he will be devoured by monsters. This makes him even more hesitant, and says that he does not want to possess the body of a zombie, who has already been called a lot in his previous life. However, the goddess says that this is why she will grant him the privilege of a transmigrator, and will gain the ability to regenerate. She continues and explains that this ability will also be pre-programmed to be activated the moment he possesses the body of Alan. He quickly understands, but also realizes that he is simply gaining a stolen ability, which is easily ranked SSS for free. With this ability, he will now be sure to get several beautiful girls, and will be able to say goodbye to his sad past. The goddess asks if he is ready and excited. He replies that yes, his second life begins now. He is sure it will be a wonderful life, and now is the moment when he becomes the king of the arena. At least there was a time when he thought like that, because 3 years have passed since he started living in this other world of fairies and magic, and is almost breaking a new record of his loneliness. There were times when he thought that all this was a joke or a nightmare. He miscalculated several things. First, that killing monsters is difficult, even a slime he can't beat. Then the goddess revealed in her dream that he also can't learn magic by leveling up. His only advantage is to use the regeneration ability that is activated quickly and with low mana consumption, but even healing the pain he felt does not disappear. No one would want such an incompetent companion. So he has been completely alone. Besides all that, he can't use his ability in front of others. In this world, the healing ability is considered a miraculous and rare art, and the church has an organization that accumulates money doing this. His regeneration ability is a superior version of the healing ability, and the last thing he wants is to keep an eye on him. He now thinks that someone else in his place and with the same goals would have already given up, but he won't do that. That's why he's there today. In The Slave Merchant, with his 85 IQ, he had the brilliant idea of raising money. All this time doing half-time work for 3 years, All this for that moment. That's where his arena starts in another world, and right after entering, what he sees is a weird old man, who asks what class he wants. The old man is ugly and scary, but he needs to control himself and he must be firm. He wanted to use a strong and fearless voice, but a thin and weak one ends up coming out in his request to see everything. In the end, the old man shows him only a few, but he came prepared for this, and now he will go to the attack, making an extremely stylish pose. He says that the old man has others that he is hiding, which surprises him. He notices his reaction and continues with his bluff, saying again that he asked to see everything. The old man is silent for a moment, but then agrees to show the others. They are now in a completely different place, which makes you wonder if anyone can even live there. Reaching the place where the last ones are, he is shown two girls in a deplorable state. Looking at that, the alien was completely shocked. There was no hope in his eyes. He asks who they are. The merchant says that the oldest is an old elf, a superior race of elves, and the other is an old dwarf. Both are rare species. He says that they would normally be of class A, but in that situation, however, before the merchant continues, he asks how much he wants for both. He wants to take both. The merchant doesn't understand, but he agrees. They don't serve him anymore. They've been there for a long time, so he buys both, and taking them in a cart, because they couldn't even walk, he confirms that he is far from the city, after calming them down for a while. He says that they must have suffered a lot all this time, and then he starts using his regeneration ability. Now he can finally show the true value of his ability, be it his hands or his eyes. Everything was restored as they came into the world, but he didn't expect them to be such beautiful girls like that, and he is shocked without understanding anything. The girls couldn't believe it. It could only be a divine miracle. On the other hand, the alien was still confused. He did want beautiful girls in his arena, but he didn't expect them to be so beautiful, so he doesn't even know how to talk to them now. However, the girls soon ask for his name, and caught completely without a way, he tries to introduce himself, but ends up biting his own tongue in the process. But then he starts to take a deep breath and calm down, because now it's finally happening. His arena in another world starts here. They would normally think now that he would actually start fulfilling his dream of creating an arena. This is what they would normally think after all that. But when comparing these two girls, he spent all his savings until the last coin, and now he doesn't even have any more money to pay for an inn, and is forced to live in an old cabin in the depths of the mountains. He is completely bankrupt, and the goddess claims to be loving the whole situation, and goes from his monologue just to make fun of him. But he somehow manages to expel her. There are many things out of his plans now. He wanted was just to be loved by the two girls he bought. In the end, he still continues to update his history of vision. The old elf is called Sylvia, and the dwarf is called Noel. The two are rare birds in this world, but apart from that, he doesn't know anything else about the two. This is because he can't read or write the writing used in this world, which prevents him from reading the parchment that details their information, but noticing that it is not time to be depressed, he begins the covering of his plantations, when suddenly Sylvia appears, already dressed in elegant clothes, which catches Alan completely, but quickly reconsiders and answers his question, and it was what he was doing. He says that this is cultivating yams, and this makes her confused for some reason. He asks if she doesn't like yams by chance, but Sylvia says it's not, and still confused, asks if he will cultivate it. Alan replies yes, but for not understanding her doubts, he thinks she wouldn't want to eat the yam cultivated by a failure like him, or that maybe she is thinking that her master is poor and wants to be self-sufficient, and trying to change the subject, asks if she is taking a walk. At the moment he has no time to rest, because now he has the responsibility of not letting them sleep outdoors or starve, so he needs to spend the money he can on the day buying food, and to reassure his wallet, he convinces himself that this is for the two girls, because if they earn a little more meat, they will certainly be very good to hug. Putting the basket of fruits on the table, he offers it to Noel, who thanks him. He just wants them to eat well, but both are still cautious with him. Lying on the floor of his room, he now regrets it, because in this situation he cannot simply arrive and ask for what he wants so much. He needs to make them trust him. But he doesn't have time to think about it now, since he needs to find today's work, and then warns that he is going to the city and asks them to wait for him. He notices the confusion in their eyes, and asks if they happen to want him to buy something specific to eat, but both say no, regretting not even knowing what they like to eat. His plan to attract them with food has failed, and goes to the city. Now in Sylpha's perspective, we see that she was in disbelief with all this. Then he just left and left her alone. Both she and Noel have already regained their original powers, and even if they have the slave arm, it would not be difficult to escape their control. Maybe he is testing them, is what she starts to think. He even wants to cultivate yams, and Sylph manages to do this in an instant with magic. And he should know this by reading the evaluation scroll. He just needed to give him a single order, and would no longer need to work alone. She is grateful for him restoring her bodies, but wonders what her goal is, because despite having the stolen ability to restore and having 2 girls at her disposal, she did not notice the sign that he wants her bodies. Only she knows that this is exactly what he wants, she just can't speak. In the end, she wonders what he plans to do after conquering them. And to confirm her suspicions, she followed him. However, she did not see what she suspected, and yes, Alan entering a clinic, she wonders if he works there, and why he is not using the restoration instead of the common cure, but soon realizes that the church would certainly keep an eye on him if he did. However, if this happened, in the best of situations, he could have any position and honors he wanted, so he does not understand the reason for working there and earning almost nothing. It is then that Alan finishes healing the girl, and she thanks him, and he asks her to be more careful while making a serene expression, which leaves Sylph helpless. She wonders what his problem is, and why he is pretending to be a good person, even because he buys slaves, but then remembers that he himself buying does not seem to have any interest in them. In the end, she has no idea what he is thinking, and at that exact moment, he just thought that the clouds were looking like a big pair of melons. 13 months have passed since then, and now in the perspective of Alan, who was reaping his yams, which were finally ready to harvest, Sylph asks why he is not using them to make the plants grow, including, "I'm sure she can do other things besides growing plantations too." Alan does not understand this question, and thinks that she wants him to put her to work with agriculture, which is not necessary, because she can restore her resilience and work alone on it, so he intended to refuse her help. When she says that with her tree magic, she can harvests immediately, and demonstrates this to him in an instant, he is left without understanding anything, and wonders what the hell of a skill stolen is this, and why she hid it all this time, and noticing his confusion, Sylph asks what the problem is, and if he did not know about it, and if this information should be written in the evaluation parchment, which reminds him of the paper that he could not read a long time ago. Now with a yam in his hands, he wonders if he should tell the truth, but soon realizes that this would be like declaring that he is a baby who does not know how to read or write. Besides being very ashamed of him as their master, a man has to look good in front of a girl. Having said that, he must tell a lie, but what to tell? He is a perverted yam lover, he just needs to calm down, and think of something that will not decrease his value even more, but an excuse that increases his actions in her eyes, and then think of something. He says that magic is a two-sided coin, depending on the user, so he decided not to force her to use magic, and hoped that she would consider it on her own. That the idea of thinking that you can do anything just because you have a stolen skill is something scary, after this hypocrisy show of his. He himself knows that he should be the last to say that, because he always thought so, but he continues with his farce and says that there is no need for her to force herself to use her magic, and then goes back to his collection. Now in Sylph's perspective, after she showed her magic, she thought that he could even pretend to be a good person, but that he would reveal himself after seeing his magic, which did not happen. Instead of that, what appeared was an expression that showed an open wound in his heart, and that his words after that seemed to be trying to convince him. Now she is sure that he was not lying, that he possibly ended up getting lost in his power of restoration in the past, thinking that he could do anything, but that something happened that changed his vision, so he hides his power. She somehow came to this conclusion after hearing him speak, and now she feels ashamed of herself for having displayed her magic that way, and approaching Noel, she says that she has something to talk about, something about her future, and the next morning, when she went to finish her collection, he was left without understanding anything, because in addition to the yams, there were several vegetables there, all ready for harvest, that could only have been Silk's work, and he realizes that even he, a reincarnated man, does not have a stolen ability like that, and not only did he do that, but he was also with Noel Sonolenta helping with the harvest. Still confused, he asks her why she used her magic, which also makes her wonder if she ended up being in a hurry. Suddenly another misunderstanding is made, and he thinks she did it to criticize him in some way for what he said the day before, and that now his plan to use his modern knowledge to be incomparable is over. He tries again to say that she doesn't need to force herself to do it, but she says it's okay, and with the two of them leaving to make breakfast, he also sees the time to drink slipping away, until he suddenly thinks of another way, and he can no longer be successful in agriculture, so he will invent concrete that does not yet exist in this world, to create robust and modern buildings. But then Noel suddenly appears and says that she smelled him doing things, and if that's why he asks to participate, he is surprised, because this is the first time Noel talks like that to him, and then agrees. She asks what they're going to do, and he says he wants to build a new house with concrete, and for never having heard of it before, she quickly gets excited, curious about what it is. Alan then begins to explain how the concrete is made, and the cement. While she listens carefully to everything he says, she asks if there is anything else after making the concrete, and excited, Alan says he will teach her, but only to her, minutes after explaining how to follow. He says that in practice it is more difficult, but Noel says that he can just sit and watch now, and in an instant, she begins to organize all the raw materials necessary for the cement, and he then notices that this will be left without his contributions. But now it was too late for that. Noel, like Sylph, also had his ability stolen, and while he was desperate, she successfully completes the cement manufacturing. Now he remembers how he ended up saying everything so proudly that he didn't even notice that this could happen. He also realizes that recently the two girls have been talking more and more, imagining the worst scenario. He can only think that they are getting together and realizing how useless he is. And the next day, Noel and Sylph built 3 new houses. Noel, with the ability to harden, made the walls firm, revealing herself a master in manufacturing. And Sylph filled the bamboo with mana, making them super resistant. And while Sylph called him to enter the new houses, he wondered how it all ended like this. He should be reincarnated with a stolen ability. He should be the strongest and flirt with the girls. He barely knew that in the future he would be adored as a demon king, feared even by the hero. And watching all this, the goddess learns that she should laugh at him more times, and see how things will end, now in Noel's perspective. While she listened attentively to Alan's words, she herself was amazed. Because her extinct dwarves were screaming like never before, and after reproducing as Alan had said, she felt even more incredible. Now she is sure that Alan is not a simple nobody, and even with his stolen ability to restore, he does not show himself and is also not vain with the knowledge he has to share. All the things he taught her made her extremely happy, and even Sylph, who was so distrustful of him, is now willing to deposit her trust. And in this way Noel also starts to think like this. Now she also wants to carry the weight of Alan's shoulders, and so when Alan wakes up in the morning, there were 2 more houses in the backyard. He didn't understand anything. Noel, anxious by Alan's reaction, looked around, until he noticed her, and she then reported that she had built 3 more houses for each of them. If she says that as if it were nothing, she then leaves the corner she was in, and goes to them worried. Getting close enough to embarrass him, however, without caring about it, she just starts to say that she worked hard for Alan, for Sylph and for her, so now she wants him to reward her, and Sylph, hearing all this, says that he should just do it right away. But Alan, with his mind completely detuned, soon thinks that they are up to something against him, and all this is nothing more than a show to ridicule him. However, his depressive fantasies are interrupted, because they call him. Sylph asks if everything was okay, and only then does he realize that he needed to calm down, because now there is no turning back, and from their point of view, it must be perfectly fine for him to praise Noel. He has permission to caress her head, and after gathering strength, he now just asks for himself that she does not look like a pervert after that, and caressing Noel's head, and thanking her for her hard work. Her fears were just illusions, because Noel loved it. And while he was desperate with his heart to 1,000, being purified, Sylph watched it all completely embarrassed, and could not help but feel envious. She saw that Noel was crying when she made the request, so she tried to give her a little push, but did not expect it to result in anything. But trying to calm down, she tries to convince herself that she is of a kind of the noblest, an ancient elf, and will not be envious of a simple drop in the bucket, and that way, she decides to start increasing the number of plant harvests, while trying to convince herself that she certainly does not have second intentions. That way a few months passed, and Sylph found Alan once again taking care of the vegetables alone, as if he forgot the girl's spells. Together the two can do anything. Food and construction in general became much easier, but Alan never asked them to use their spells, and there were those who used it on their own. After that time living together, she notices that he really does not seem blind to desires, and lives like an eremite. Although she realizes that he has an obsession with Iriums, but tired of just being in doubt, she now wants to know what he wants to do, and his true feelings, and taking advantage of the fact that he is there alone, approaches and asks what is the reason why he bought them. She wants to know his true goal. Now from Alan's perspective, the only answer that passed through his head was that he wanted to do things with the two, nothing more, but obviously he can't say that to them, and curious as Sylph, Noel also appears, and Sylph says that they are of a rare species. Now that they are recovered, their values are priceless, but he still uses them only to compensate for the need around him, and they ask him if he has nothing he wants to do. With these questions, it seems that they know what he really wants, and after hearing this part of just to compensate, he doesn't understand anything, because abundant food and richly furnished housing are not just anything, they are already providing him with free food. How could he ask for more? Why doesn't he ask her to use magic? Because that would simply make him feel even more pathetic. The two have already given him food and a house, so he simply can't take advantage of his potentials in the situation that he is in. If they asked him to lick their feet, there would be no other choice but to obey, but thinking more about it, he would love it if they asked him to do that. And while he was thinking of a way to escape from this, the girls wanting to show what they are capable of, reveal their most stolen spells to him. However, this only destroyed him even more, and now angry, he decides to reveal his true intention to her. He will say what he really wants to do, or was that his intention? Because in the end he says he wants to save the world from hunger. Hearing this catches the two girls by surprise. But without time to realize it, his true self beats him for running away once again for his cowardice, and Silvio, still absorbing what was said, thinks that this is the ideal worthy of a god, and that it is not something that would be admitted like that. Besides that he is holding Ohayami with a lot of strength, and with a distant expression. He barely knows how he is in a great revolt with himself now, and after looking at Noelle to confirm if they were thinking the same thing, they both agree with something. Even still not fully trusting him, Silvio approaches him and says he will follow him, because he wants to see the world he wants to create by his side, and with that, his excuse invented at the moment, became the beginning of his heroic tale in another world. In the world there are only two types of people, losers and winners, those who lead and those who follow, those who explore and those who are explored. Thinking about it makes Alan remember his little sister Mizu and her jokes, as when she made a completely unfair exchange. Giving him something he doesn't like, and taking something he likes, and never giving him a chance to choose. On that day Alan did not forgive her for her unfair jokes, and tried to take revenge on her, but always failed to take revenge on his sister. He wonders if she is okay now, but that after all, he thinks that reincarnating was not so regrettable. However, this time of remembrance happens while he was in the middle of a conversation with the girls, which call him back to reality, with that he realizes that his mind was even remembered the past to escape from reality, because this conversation was the direct continuation of when he said he wanted to free the world from hunger, and asking if he was listening, Silky says that they should then cultivate the land to free the world from hunger, and Alan could only agree now with that, and while Silky analyzes the way they should progress, Alan begins to think how the devil Silky, with all this intellectual beauty, did not realize his hidden motives, coming to think that, in fact, she realized yes, and is only pretending ignorance, so that he keeps dancing in the palm of his hand. No, he can't let it end that way, and he still has a lot of modern knowledge in his sleeve, which is even considered the person with the highest IQ in the school. Having said that, he then proposes that they should fertilize, something they have no idea what it is, so he quickly explains that it is something that will supplement the soil nutrients that were used for the growth of plants, and even Sylphie being able to grow plants even in territorial land, that is, land that should not be possible to produce anything. This is not something that it can sustain for a long time. Sylphie understands very well, because that way it could use less mana, and they can start to think about the improvement of taste. Alan then comments that there is something more in all this, called culture rotation. The plan is to feed the cattle on the soil in Posio, and Posio is nothing more than a practice that consists of resting the soil from agricultural activities, as a way to restore the vitality of the land and avoid the drop in productivity. In this soil they will sow the wheat, and when they create pasture for the cattle, they will increase their number. The cattle eating the pasture will create manure for the soil, and so a real cycle, an agricultural revolution. Here the protagonist really farmed a lot, and finding everything, while he continues talking, he realizes that she was completely speechless, that this is expected, because there should not be a woman in the world who likes a vain and arrogant man like him, until Noelle suddenly approaches him, with curious eyes to know more about it. Alan knows this event flow very well, that way he will have his place to shine stolen again. Knowing this, he tries to be firm this time, and says that he thinks it is better for him to do it this time. What he did not expect was that Sylphie would enter the game, and while she asks him not to make beer, she puts her finger on his nose, and says that this is not cool. This leaves him completely bewildered, and makes him wonder if she is seeing him as a child, and what it must mean is that blink she gave. While he asks these things, Noelle also took him by the arm, and asked for details on how to make fertilizers soon. Feeling completely blessed by these two beauties, being so interested in his knowledge, Alan gives in to his requests, and explains everything directly. After hearing everything, Noelle was completely fascinated, and after that, it started immediately. Lunchtime arrives, and Noelle finally appears, as he had disappeared for a while. Sylphie says that she was going to call her, but Noelle says that before that, she wants to show him something. Noelle has simply made several packs, as well as several bags of fertilizers. She said that judging by Alan's explanation, the amount used may vary, so she wants you to try it and tell her if you need to make the adjustment. Looking at such a feat, Alan could only admire Noelle, until Noelle says that with this, Alan's work will be easier, and only now he wonders where it fits in. Noelle is responsible for the manufacture, while Sylphie is responsible for the cultivation. In this way, the only thing left for him to be is the one responsible for the complaint and resistance. Even if he understands that this is a necessary and important function, This should not be the role of a reincarnated in another world with the ability of stolen support. For him, once again, they stole his shine and even gave him a task, and not being sufficient, they still ask for praise. While he cares for Noelle's head, feeling completely explored, he realizes that at least Noelle's hair is cute and soft to touch. Now, from Sylphie's perspective, who watches Alan care for Noelle's head, Sylphie tried to tell himself that he shouldn't be jealous. That Alan is just showing his appreciation to Noelle. But, interrupting them, she says that they should leave it to take care of the crop later and have lunch. So they do it, but while they were having lunch, Sylph didn't stop thinking that Alan is really a curious person. His desire to free the world from hunger is really something to admire, but even with his strength, she doesn't feel that this is really possible. However, after hearing Alan talking about fertilizers and culture rotation, she was speechless. The word, as he himself said, is a revolutionary idea, and what impresses her the most is the vast amount of knowledge necessary to get there. For her, Alan for a long time fought alone and continued in a frenetic way to make his ideal a reality. Now, she is even sure that the reason for him to buy it is because only Noelle with you can freely control the magic of the trees. However, even if she thinks that this is the case, he still doesn't force her to work, or uses commands from a master, and says that respecting their independence in such a way really makes a person understand. Alan asks her to say something, but Sylph says it was nothing, and asks if they would like more soup, and both agree. After that, it was time to start work, now in the perspective of Alan. Thanks to the fertilizer made by Noelle, the work was not so complicated, even if many things have not been as he wanted. Alan still hopes that there must be a way to end the spider route, where he can get everything he wants with his stolen ability. His regeneration is a huge cheat that can even resurrect. Not only that, but it can also be used to dig a solo fest. And while he continues to try to motivate himself, talking to himself positive things about him, Alan wonders if Sylph and Noelle will notice his effort, and also praise him for his hard work. He loves to flatter them, but he also wants to be liked and appreciated, and so he continues until nightfall. Now, having Noelle's perspective, which I watched excited, Alan working to eliminate hunger. For her, the reason he bought it was to be a dwarf. However, he trusts them with so much wisdom, even if it is easy to use them for selfish reasons. Does he think they will not betray? Noelle has sometimes caught herself thinking about it, but now she realizes that it is not about that, and that after all, Alan has never given them any order. And what Alan wants from them is that they walk together to a distant future when his ideal is realized. And that the knowledge he shares with them is the result of his efforts and a proof of his trust in them. In addition to he is a responsible person who is always attentive to his needs. And so, at that moment, Noelle swears by the name of the elder dwarves that she will support him. And I'm sure Sylph thinks so too, but before she says anything to her, Sylph tells Noelle that Alan is simply incredible. Noelle obviously agrees, and says that she needs to give everything to support her. Upon hearing it, Sylph agrees and says that she will do it too. And so they decide that they will act at their own will, doing everything possible to make their ideals and his a reality. And without knowing it, Alan was walking towards the so-desired dwarven route. Now, back to Alan's perspective, who was resting after working all day, the goddess appears completely breaking the fourth wall of her world, only to call him pathetic and lazy for getting tired after doing such useless tasks. And Alan, already used to his regular visits, could only ask her to stop coming just to have fun with her face. And trying not to make it cheap this time, Alan wonders if, by chance, the other goddesses are bitter like her. But she only laughs like a fool, while she says that maybe that's it. Not putting up with her playing with him the way she wants, Alan listens to her. But in the end, he agrees with her, because he was really free and at ease. This is because Sylpha's magic has its own balance, and it is not efficient to be playing a lot at once. Noelle is working in her workshop, and doing housework is not necessary, because their magic solves it easily. It is then that Alan realizes that if he has nothing to do, then he just needs to invent something. With that, he runs to Noelle and says that he has a favor to ask. But that if she is busy, however, without even letting him finish speaking, Noelle agrees to give him ears in an animated way. With that, he shows her his idea, and Noelle approaches to see more up close. While the analysis focused on the idea, practically using it as support, Alan wonders if she did not realize this for being very immersed in the project. While he was in shock. Moments later, she says that there are no sizes listed in the project. And Alan says he forgot, but the truth is that as he still can't read or write, only simple illustrations came out. After that, Noel says it's easy to do, but asks what he's going to use it for. And kind of without an answer, Alan says it's something he needs. The truth is that he wants to create these games for them to enjoy together, and who knows, he may not get the development he so longs for. In this way, Noel hurries to build these games. The question that remains for you, viewer, is: will Alan become the one who explores the other, or will he continue to be explored? Now, from the perspective of Sylph, who noticed Alan and Noel excited at the office, they were both already talking about the games and their rules. Noel asks what they would be used for, and Alan says they are items for leisure, which confuses Sylph. Because Alan, the one with the goal of freeing the world from hunger, would waste time and fun. She needed to ask him for the details, so she approached and asked if she could join them. And when she saw her, Alan smiles, which for Sylph says a lot. Surely she must have some hidden meaning in what they are doing. She knows that Alan may even have that appearance of a passionate young man, but that all this impression he has is usually all false. If the true Alan, having obtained great power for himself, is a wise man who has suffered for years and is now at peace. Funny that the story about the perspective of what she thinks he is always changes. She barely knows that he is actually an ordinary young man who is crazy to create an arena. But not knowing any of this, Sylph wants to become Alan's strength and support him in whatever she can. And joining them, Noel asks how the game will work. And excited as ever, Alan says they will start with a game called Rebirth. In this game, the pieces are divided into black and white. However, as the goddess herself says, for those who want to know details, search on Google. And so, Alan explains all the games created. And after seeing all this, Sylph was simply in shock with the size of the knowledge. All these games he presented to them had rules that anyone could understand. And you can easily see a future where both children and adults will be attracted to them. Literally a gold mine. It is then that, suddenly, Alan tells them that instead of playing for fun, why not make a bet? The winner can give the loser any order he wants. And not knowing Alan's plan, Yuffie is completely perplexed. Because giving slaves an opportunity to give orders to their master is something completely absurd. So Sylph starts to think about several things. Would this be a test with a direct link to her goal of eliminating hunger? She must refuse to show her understanding or agree. She doesn't know. It is then that Noel calls her and says that they both need to do their best. That way, Sylph calms down and comes back to herself, remembering the promise they made to themselves. And so I agree to participate in this Alan game. Excited, the girls speak to themselves that they will do everything to meet their expectations. With the negotiations over, the game begins. With Alan completely convinced of his skills. And with the table ready, Yuffie realizes that, as Alan is the inventor of the game, he knows everything. By this logic, she doesn't see how they could beat him. However, Alan, after a few moves, leaves Sylph in shock. Hi, your last move was the worst and dumbest thing you could imagine. And not only that, as it was one after the other. And now he is in a totally unfavorable situation for him. And with that, Alan loses to Sylph. And all he has left is to cry. And Sylph is left without understanding anything. Now, thinking about how the devil he lost. She wonders if it was on purpose or if it was part of his plan. And Alan didn't plan to win. And that these matches were just an excuse for them to give him orders. These games are a gold mine. And their financial situation doesn't give time for simple jokes. Would this be a task to get funds for your cause? So the order they need to give can only have one. And now, after 2 crushing victories against their master, the 2 make their requests. Gilf wants to register in the Mercantile Guild. And Noel wants to have the right to property for these recreation games. Alan is silent for a while. And Sylph asks if that was the right answer. They already knew that Alan was silent all this time, because he thought they would ask him to set them free. And after breathing his last, he agrees with his requests. In the end, his plan was completely down the drain. And he, a veteran, lost to rookies. And had his malicious plan ruined. And now, in the city to carry out their requests. Alan wonders if then, for them to continue with him, would it be because they actually don't hate him? Alan didn't know that they were already in his arena. He just needs to take the initiative. Euphoric, Alan decides to buy some things. And Sylph realizes that he seems to be having fun. And looking at him talking to Noelle. Now she wonders if, with that, she got closer to him. Even a little. 2 weeks have passed since Noelle and Sylph's registration in their guilds. And Alan is now obsessed with Shoggy, one of the games he created in this world. Recently, he's been playing a lot with Sylph. And when he calls her for another match today, Sylph accepts and says it will be a great warm-up for her mind. These simple words already destroy him. And he can easily imagine her calling him weak. But it doesn't matter what he thinks. The result is always the same. Sylph wins quietly. And Alan invents excuses that didn't take him seriously. After that, Noelle appears and calls Sylph to leave soon. Before leaving, Noelle says they're going to the capital again today. And that they'll be back before dinner. That way, Alan is left alone without doing anything for another day. Lying frustrated, he begins to think about another plan. Based on his modern knowledge, he will take a direct trip to the route of romance. She plan now is create alcohol. With a body on fire, comes loose reason. After that, he just needs to keep following the flow. And then he'll get there. However, ending his fantasies, Adius appears again and asks if he's alone again. He says they went to the capital, as she should know. And the goddess says they've been doing this a lot lately. This is enough to make Alan open his eyes and realize that he doesn't see them shopping either. So why are they doing this? They don't even have money to spend anyway. And giving a complete checkmate to Alan's head. Adius says that who knows? They're not just abandoning their master, who is not reliable, and for whom they lost love, and went to work far from home. Reflecting only now about this, Alan notes that it may even be that. Because even if they have managed to cut costs with food, they still can't give him the value of living in luxury. If it's not Alice, they're real adults. So of course they'd like to eat delicious food, and have fun with pretty clothes, while they're possibly working. Who knows what? He's there like an old man who plays games, and only he wants to play. This makes Alan paranoid, imagining that they might be involved in illegal activities. Imagining such a thing, it's enough for Alan to go crazy, running to the capital and denying to believe that they're doing such a thing. Our video ends here. If you want to see the continuation of this video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you enjoyed it, share it with your friends. See you next time.